The air in the cramped, silent elevator was thick enough to chew, scented only by the delicate jasmine perfume she wore, a scent I usually adored but which now felt like a suffocating cloud. Her fingers, fine and slender, were wrapped around the strap of her handbag, mere inches from where my knuckles rested against the cool steel panel. I told myself I was just watching the numbers climb, 14, 15, 16, but my peripheral vision was locked on the tiny, almost imperceptible tremor in her hand. Then, the lift jolted between floors, a sharp, unexpected movement that threw us together. Her shoulder brushed mine, the contact electric, and she gasped, a soft, involuntary sound. Before she could pull away, my hand instinctively shot out to steady her, settling firmly on the small of her back. The sudden, intense closeness made my heart slam against my ribs, a wild, frantic drumbeat that I was certain she could hear. Our eyes met, a collision of green into hazel, and the usual playful fire was replaced by a strange, unsettling depth, a raw vulnerability I'd never seen. Her lips parted slightly, breath catching, and for a long, charged moment neither of us moved. The silence was deafening, the only sound the furious thumping in my chest and the low hum of the elevator motor. I felt the heat radiate from her skin right through my jacket. "Are you all right?" I finally managed, the words a rough whisper that felt too loud. She didn't answer right away. Instead, she leaned in just a fraction, the movement so subtle it was almost imagined, and her voice, when it came, was honeyed and low, unlike her usual sharp wit. "Perfectly fine now," she murmured, a gentle curve on her lips that was more sweet than seductive. But it was the way her hand briefly, almost imperceptibly, brushed the back of mine when I finally withdrew it, a lingering feather-light touch, that sent a jolt of icy fear through me. That sweetness, that tender, solicitous gaze, was so alien to her fiery nature. It was as if someone else was looking out of her eyes. Her sudden kindness scared me, because guilt makes people gentle before they confess. The elevator doors sighed open on the 22nd floor, and she turned to leave, her exit graceful, but then she paused, glancing back over her shoulder, her expression dissolving into one of pure, heartbreaking contrition. "About last night," she began, her voice cracking. "I need to tell you." She didn't finish the sentence. The sound of a heavy, rolling suitcase scraping across the marble floor in the hallway interrupted her, pulling her gaze, and mine, away from the raw confession hovering on her tongue. The momentary lapse allowed the mask to slip back into place, sealing the vulnerability away. She stepped out, a phantom of the woman who had just stared at me with such frightening tenderness. I followed her, the image of that brief, gentle touch on my hand searing itself into my memory. Last night. The phrase echoed hollowly in my mind. Last night had been their 5th anniversary dinner, a tense, meticulously planned affair that had felt less like a celebration and more like a high-stakes performance. We'd been navigating a minefield of unspoken resentments for months. The playful teasing had become barbed, the intense eye contact now felt like scrutiny. We were two strangers sharing a life, separated by a chasm of mutual expectation that neither of us could bridge. Yet there were the moments, the small, painful tugs of undeniable attraction that kept the charade alive. Earlier that morning, before the jasmine perfume and the charged elevator ride, I'd found her in the kitchen, hair tousled from sleep, wearing one of my old shirts. She hadn't noticed me watching as she stretched, the movement arching her back, and a familiar, irresistible surge of desire had hit me, a painful reminder of what we once were. I had walked up behind her, circling her waist with my arms, burying my face in the curve of her neck. She hadn't resisted, leaning back into my embrace, her hands covering mine, a quiet acceptance that spoke volumes. It was a comfortable closeness, but the underlying tension was a taut wire waiting to snap. Her desire, I knew, was a burning, restless energy that I'd long failed to match, or perhaps, had grown too comfortable ignoring. And my own hidden desire? It was for simplicity, for the uncomplicated peace that her ambition, her relentless pursuit of more, had systematically stripped from our home. We wanted different futures, and that unspoken truth was the largest crack in our foundation. As we walked down the hall, she quickened her pace, the gentle demeanor from the elevator completely gone. She was professional, composed, aloof. "Tell me what, exactly?" I asked, my voice low, pressing for the confession she'd started. She stopped at the end of the corridor, turning back. Her eyes were hard now, evasive, the unsettling kindness replaced by a practiced indifference. "Nothing important. Just about the reservation for tomorrow night. I need to cancel it," she said smoothly, retrieving a file from a waiting assistant. But as she spoke, her gaze flickered not to my eyes, but to the wedding band on my finger, then back up to mine. And for a split second, I saw a flash of raw, debilitating regret, or was it panic, before she smiled, a flawless, brittle smile. "I'll see you at home, darling." That easy dismissal, the casual use of the endearment, felt like a deliberate lie designed to soothe. But the look in her eyes had confirmed my fear. She was gentle because she was guilty. And whatever she had done, it was big enough to make her flawless composure fracture. The cancelled reservation was just a distraction. Something had happened last night. And the beautiful, frightening woman I loved was about to break the man she was standing next to. The moment she walked out of the office, the air I inhaled felt heavy with the scent of her jasmine, a phantom presence that sharpened the edges of my burgeoning paranoia. I couldn't focus. That cancelled reservation felt like a deliberate act of severance, a subtle snipping of the thread that held us together. I found myself replaying the elevator scene, fixating on the brief moment she'd rested her hand on mine. It was a gesture of intimate comfort, utterly foreign to the cool distance she usually maintained in public. I walked back to the security monitors, ostensibly checking the feed, but really searching for a distraction from the churning jealousy in my gut. Who was she protecting? Who was she canceling the dinner for? Later that evening, after the office emptied, I was still there, caught in a cycle of speculation. I walked into her spacious corner office. The room was immaculate, save for a small, crumpled receipt lying beside her desk wastebasket. I knew I shouldn't, but the temptation, the desperate need to confirm the darkness I suspected, was too great. I retrieved the paper. It wasn't a bank statement, or a hotel bill, just a receipt from a high-end liquor store for a bottle of expensive, single-malt scotch, a brand I knew she detested, and one I never drank. My heart rate kicked up a notch, a painful, rapid rhythm. The memory of last night's anniversary dinner flashed vividly, the moment she excused herself, claiming a headache, only to return 30 minutes later, her eyes too bright, her movements too swift, smelling faintly of a smoke she usually abhorred. The lie was too clumsy, the kindness too overwhelming. I sat in her chair, the leather cool beneath me, and closed my eyes, a hidden longing for the simple trust we once shared warring with the bitter suspicion consuming me. I could almost feel her presence, the memory of her body pressed against mine in the elevator, the quiet intimacy of her touch. It was a dizzying blend of attraction and fear. She was my wife, yet she felt like a stranger I desperately wanted to know, a secret I desperately needed to uncover. Just as I decided to confront her the moment I got home, my phone buzzed. It was a text message, from an unknown number. "He's waiting for you." No signature. No context. But a raw, sickening certainty flooded my mind. He, the Scotch. The lie. Her sudden, frightening gentleness. The breaking point wasn't coming, we were already there. The forbidden truth was staring me in the face. The unknown text message felt like a live current in my palm, short-circuiting every rational thought. "He's waiting for you." The simple phrase suggested a shared, clandestine understanding, an intimacy that excluded me entirely. I left her office immediately, the receipt for the scotch clutched in my hand, driving home on autopilot, the silence of the car amplifying the deafening sound of my own internal dread. When I arrived, the apartment was quiet, dimly lit by the low glow of a single lamp in the living room. She wasn't immediately visible, but her jacket, the one she wore in the elevator, was draped carelessly over the back of the sofa, a stark, domestic presence that momentarily calmed the frenzy. I found her in the bedroom, standing by the window, silhouetted against the city lights. She was wearing a silk slip, her back to me, and the sight of her, so utterly vulnerable and beautiful, shattered my anger. The raw, aching love I still harbored flared up, competing fiercely with the cold fury of betrayal. I walked toward her slowly. She must have heard my footfall, but she didn't turn. The air was charged, heavy, almost vibrating with unspoken accusations and suppressed passion. I stopped right behind her, close enough to feel the warmth radiating from her bare skin, the jasmine scent now muted, intimate. I let the receipt slip from my fingers, allowing it to land softly on the thick rug. "Who is waiting for me?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper, strained with the effort of control. She flinched violently, finally turning to face me. Her eyes were wide, glistening in the low light, reflecting the thousand tiny anxieties I knew she was fighting. The vulnerability from the elevator was back, amplified, mixed with a fearful resignation. "It wasn't me," she pleaded, her voice cracking. "It wasn't me who sent that." I didn't believe her. The closeness was unavoidable now. I reached out, not in anger, but in a desperate, last-ditch effort to reconnect with the woman I loved before the lie consumed us both. My hand cradled her cheek, her skin soft and cool beneath my thumb. Her breath hitched. The tension between us was a physical thing, a burning, irresistible force. She leaned into my touch, her eyes fluttering shut, an act of surrender that was both heartbreaking and seductive. Our faces were inches apart, the climax of months of hidden longing and unspoken truths finally exploding into the silence. "I know it was you," I murmured, my gaze locked on her trembling lips. "Just tell me who he is." A single tear tracked down her cheek. "It's not what you think," she whispered, her voice laced with terror. Before I could press further, the sound of the front door latch clicking open echoed through the apartment. A pause. Then, a man's voice, deep and unfamiliar, cut through the quiet. "Honey, I'm home. Did you tell him yet?" The sound of the man's voice, deep, resonant, and utterly foreign, froze the air around us. The intense, charged silence of our imminent kiss was violently shattered by the intrusion. My hand dropped from her cheek as if burned. In that microsecond of terror, her expression shifted from vulnerable remorse to sheer, blinding panic. "Honey, I'm home. Did you tell him yet?" The phrasing, tell him confirmed my deepest fears. The him wasn't me. It was me she needed to tell. But the twist wasn't the affair itself, it was the casual, possessive ease in the man's tone, suggesting a level of entitlement that went beyond a mere rendezvous. I wheeled around, my heart pounding a furious rhythm against my ribs, anticipating the sight of a hulking, jealous rival. Instead, a figure emerged from the shadows of the hallway, tall, impeccably dressed in a tailored suit, briefcase in hand. He wasn't the rugged, passionate counterpart I had envisioned. He was polished, refined, and his eyes, when they met mine, were unsettlingly calm. "I see you haven't," the man said to her, a hint of weary disappointment in his voice, ignoring my presence entirely. He took a slow, deliberate step into the bedroom, closing the door softly behind him. The click of the lock was a definitive, terrifying sound. "This isn't how I wanted you to find out, Liam," she whispered, her voice choked with tears. She didn't move away from me, the lingering, forbidden attraction between us holding her captive even as the reality of her betrayal walked into the room. "Find out what, Clara? Who is he?" I demanded, my voice rough with disbelief and the sudden, overwhelming sting of jealousy. My eyes flickered between them, searching for the telltale sign of a clandestine romance, but the air between them felt different, not stolen passion, but something deeper, more binding. The man set his briefcase down and finally looked at me, a polite, almost pitying look in his eyes. He extended a hand. "Alexander Thorne? It's a pleasure, Liam. And to answer your question..." He paused, his gaze sweeping over Clara, who was now weeping silently. "I'm her fiancé." The word hit me like a physical blow. Fiancé, not lover. Not secret boyfriend. Fiancé. The Scotch receipt, the cancelled reservation, the intense closeness in the elevator, it all slammed into place with sickening clarity. Her sudden, unusual kindness wasn't the gentleness of guilt before a confession of an affair. It was the kindness of someone breaking off one life to fully step into another. The intimacy we shared earlier, the kiss we almost had, was her final, desperate attempt to hold on to the past, a risky, emotional explosion before severing the tie. She wasn't just cheating, she was preparing to leave me for a man who was clearly more stable, more serious, more ready for the future she craved. The raw emotion in the room was suffocating. I wanted to scream, to lash out, but all I could do was stare at Clara, whose eyes pleaded for forgiveness and understanding. She had maintained this parallel life, a complete, separate engagement, fueled by the conviction that I could never provide what she needed. Alexander sighed, stepping past me towards Clara, a possessive gesture that made my blood boil. "It's time to go, Clara. You said you'd tell him tonight?" Clara shook her head, tears streaming. "I can't, not yet. Just one more night, please." Before she could finish, I moved. Not toward Alexander, but straight to her. I didn't care about the fiancé, the lies, or the future. In that moment of ultimate loss and betrayal, the only thing that mattered was the scorching, undeniable attraction that had been simmering between us all day. I grabbed her face, pulling her in, and kissed her, a hard, desperate, punishing kiss that was part love, part accusation, and entirely fueled by the forbidden nature of the act, right in front of the man she was supposed to marry. She responded instantly, a choked gasp escaping her as her hands clawed at my chest, pulling me closer. It was a kiss of farewell, of regret, of passion too strong to ignore. We separated just as Alexander's hand clamped down hard on my shoulder, spinning me around. "That's enough," Alexander said, his voice quiet, but deadly. "She's mine now." Alexander's hand on my shoulder was a vice, but his control was unnerving, not the rage of a cuckolded man, but the firm authority of ownership. "She's mine now," he repeated, his eyes devoid of any raw emotion, which only intensified my own fury. I shrugged his hand off, the movement sharp and deliberate. "You walked in on me kissing my wife, Thorne." "She is not yours." Clara finally pulled away from me, tears blurring her vision as she looked at Alexander, then back at me, her body trembling with the weight of the moment. This was the consequence she had deferred, and now it was detonating. "No, Liam," she whispered, the raw sound of my name cutting deeper than any insult. "I signed the papers last week. The divorce is finalized. Alexander is right. I belong here now. This is my choice." Divorce papers. The revelation was a gut punch. She hadn't just been preparing to leave, she had already severed the tie, operating under a veil of finality that made the brief, intense passion we shared feel even more reckless and stolen. The gentleness in the elevator hadn't been guilt over a confession, it was a final, tender goodbye. Alexander stepped forward, radiating a quiet, dangerous patience. "I understand this is difficult, Liam, but you need to accept reality. Clara and I have an accelerated timeline. She's chosen stability, certainty, and a future where our ambitions align. Something you two lost a long time ago." He retrieved a key card from his pocket and placed it on the dresser, a key to this apartment, a cold, hard symbol of replacement. "I suggest you gather your essential belongings and leave. Tonight." Clara let out a choked sob and ran to Alexander, burying her face against his expensive suit jacket. He wrapped his arms around her, a protective, proprietorial gesture. But as he held her, her eyes lifted, finding mine over his shoulder. In that brief, devastating exchange, I saw the truth. Alexander was the future she needed, but I was the fire she desired. Our connection, the sudden, unavoidable closeness, the forbidden kiss in front of her fiancé, it wasn't just a goodbye. It was a confession that the passion between us was still a raging inferno she couldn't extinguish. She was choosing stability over soul. I picked up the key card, weighing the finality of it in my hand. "You're right, Alexander," I said, my voice dangerously calm. "I lost her. But you'll never have her, not like I did. Not like I just did." I walked to the closet, pulled out a duffel bag, and began to pack. The emotional breakdown was silent, internal, a cold fury that made my movements efficient and precise. As I zipped the bag, I turned back to them. Clara was still clinging to Alexander, but her gaze was fixed on me, pleading. "I need to go," I stated, walking to the door. I paused, looking back one last time, capturing the image of her tears, her undeniable regret, and the lingering passion in her eyes. "But know this, Clara," I said, my voice low and determined, focusing on the woman who was finally seeing the consequences of her choices. "If you're ever looking for the fire you gave up, you know exactly where to find me." I walked out, leaving her with the future she had chosen and the memory of the kiss that confirmed her true, hidden desire. The door closed, but the tension lingered, leaving the audience with the burning question: would the security of Alexander be enough, or would the undeniable, risky attraction to me eventually pull her back? 3 months passed, marked only by the sterile silence of my new, small apartment and the complete absence of jasmine perfume. I threw myself into my work, trying to bury the memory of that final, forbidden kiss, the kiss of farewell that felt more like a promise. I saw the news articles. Clara and Alexander's engagement was formalized, a picture of corporate perfection plastered across the business pages. The closure was supposed to be in that final walkout, yet every time my phone buzzed, a foolish, desperate hope surged through me. Then, one rainy Tuesday evening, a knock came at my door. I opened it, expecting a delivery, but froze. It was Clara. She was standing there, soaked to the bone, not in the tailored suits Alexander favored, but in a simple trench coat. Gone was the professional armor. She looked tired, vulnerable, and utterly real. The familiar scent of jasmine was faint, mixed with the clean, cold smell of the rain. "I tried," she whispered, her voice rough, her eyes red-rimmed. "I really tried to choose the sensible future." I stepped back, opening the door wider. She walked in, dropping a small, damp satchel onto the floor. The air in my cramped living room suddenly felt charged, just like the elevator 3 months prior. "The guilt wasn't making me gentle, Liam," she confessed, her voice thick. "It was the fear. The fear of admitting that the passion we shared was the only truth I couldn't live without. Alexander, he was safety. But safety doesn't keep you warm." She took a hesitant step toward me. The attraction was a physical, palpable force, intensified by the time apart and the raw honesty of her confession. All the resentment, the jealousy, the pain of betrayal melted away, replaced by the crushing realization that she was finally choosing the risky, unpredictable fire that was us. "The day you walked out," she continued, her voice gaining strength. "When you kissed me like that, in front of him, it confirmed everything. He had my life plan, but you, Liam, you still had my heart." She stopped right in front of me, her hands reaching up, cupping my face, the exact tender gesture I'd made to her that night. This time, there was no lie, no hidden agenda, only absolute, aching honesty. I left him, Liam. I walked away from the engagement, the stability, all of it. Because my kind of passion, my kind of ambition, needs a partner who can look into the fire and not run. You're the only one who ever saw me, completely, fearlessly. My hands went around her waist, pulling her close, the closeness no longer a source of suspicion, but a comforting, immediate reality. The heartbeat I felt racing now was hers, synchronizing with mine. "I told you where to find the fire," I murmured, my lips brushing against hers. "And I came home to it," she finished, her voice a soft promise. This time, the kiss wasn't desperate or punishing. It was slow, tender, and deeply affirming, a reconciliation that washed away the months of tension and misunderstanding. It was the kiss of two souls who had faced the edge of breaking and chosen to fight their way back, realizing their bond was stronger than any outside temptation or societal expectation. She pulled back just enough to look into my eyes, a genuine, fiery smile finally lighting up her face. "No more running, Liam. No more secrets. Just us." I nodded, resting my forehead against hers, the satisfaction of a love hard won filling my chest. "Welcome home, my fiery, fearless Clara."